2025 just got even crazier, part 1. Firstly, passengers on a flight departing from Hong Kong International Airport left after midnight January 1st. Well, due to them crossing time zones, they landed in Los Angeles International Airport on December 31st at 8:30 p.m., allowing them to celebrate New Year's 2 times in a row. Next, in the country of Zambia, on New Year's Eve, a police officer who was intoxicated freed 13 prisoners so they could celebrate the new year out in public. Well, there is now currently a manhunt for the 13 prisoners, and the police officer was arrested. Finally, one thing I was not expecting to happen in 2025 already is to have a judge wearing a VR headset to experience a crime in first person. Do you guys feel like this is the right way to use technology?
These teenagers were killed in their sleep by the last person anyone would expect. It was the 1st of November 2018 in Oklahoma. Kason Tolliver was 18 years old. His sister was 16-year-old Chloe. They also had a younger 14-year-old sister who remains anonymous. Kason was a talented football player and was a senior in high school. Chloe was described as a sweet, kind girl who loved cheerleading. Their mum was 43-year-old Amy Hall. In the early hours of the morning on the day in question, she crept into her son's bedroom and shot him in the head. He was instantly killed. Now, his friend was sleeping over in the same room and started to call police. Amy then walked into Chloe's room that she shared with her younger sister and shot them both. The younger sister was grazed in the neck but managed to flee to the bathroom. It was there that she convinced her mum to hand over the gun. Police sped round to the scene at around 6:30 a.m. that morning and rushed Chloe to hospital. Tragically, she was declared brain dead and passed away 4 days after. Meanwhile, Amy had fled the house and was involved in a high-speed car chase with police. She was eventually apprehended and taken into custody. Amy later claimed that she killed her children in order to save them from her estranged husband. There was allegedly an ongoing custody battle. She has pleaded guilty and been sentenced to life in prison.
Scary facts you wish you never knew.
There is a shack called the Devil's Toy Box in Louisiana, and for some reason people who go in lose their mind. Do you know the tingly feeling you get when you eat a pineapple? Well, that's because the pineapple is eating you. It has an enzyme called bromelain, and that enzyme eats meat, which you're made of. Now you can check if your phone activity is being monitored. Just click on Share, slide all the way to the end, click More. And if any apps appear before your contacts, you should delete it immediately. Sharks have been around for 420 million years, meaning they have survived all 4 big mass extinctions, making them older than dinosaurs, Mount Everest, and even some trees on this planet. The person who invented homework came up with the idea as a punishment for students.
Morbid Facts, Part 476. This 2022 photo shows 40-year-old Russian mother Anna Uskova moments before she jumped into a frozen river. She was apparently following a Christian Orthodox tradition of Epiphany and believed that jumping into the frigid water would rid her of sin. However, she jumped in at a bad angle and was quickly swept away by the powerful current, trapping her under the ice. Her husband immediately jumped in to rescue her while their children screamed in horror, but his efforts were unsuccessful and her body was recovered 10 days later. This was the truck belonging to Missouri town bully Ken McElroy after he was killed in broad daylight by an angry mob in 1981. Over the course of his life, McElroy was accused of dozens of felonies, including assault, child molestation, burglary, animal cruelty, arson, and statutory rape. He always managed to escape serving time until eventually being convicted of attempted murder. But McElroy appealed and was released on bond before he immediately threatened to kill several people. An angry mob then showed up at the bar he was drinking at and shot him several times in his truck while he was attempting to leave. Despite over 40 different witnesses, nobody admitted to seeing the murder take place, and no one has been charged to this day.
Facts about the ocean that are scarier than any horror movie. First up, I bet you didn't know that you can literally melt in the ocean. Because in the deep sea, there's something called hydrothermal vents that can reach up to 750 degrees Fahrenheit, which will allegedly cause your body to melt. But by then, you probably wouldn't even notice because all your bones would have likely been crushed by the pressure. The next fact is honestly even scarier to think about. You know how we have so many scary stories about sea creatures, like sirens, the Loch Ness Monster, or giant squids? Well, a lot of the creatures that used to be just a story are slowly being discovered as real. For example, the giant squid, which scientists found were not only real and over 59 feet in length, but are also cannibals. If that's not bad enough, here's more. Because the ocean is basically a giant graveyard. In 2014, researchers diving into an underwater cave in Mexico found the remains of a girl estimated to be 13,000 years old, meaning there's a high likelihood that if you go missing or drown that you would probably never be found. There's also 10 million viruses in every drop of seawater, meaning viruses in the ocean outnumber all of the stars in the Milky Way. The actual number is estimated to be 1 nonillion, which is a number I've never heard before, but here it is written out. That itself makes me never want to go swimming in the ocean again. Follow for more.
Extinct animals scientists are close to reviving. Firstly, the woolly mammoth. It was believed to have gone extinct 25,000 years ago, but scientists discovered hundreds that just died recently. So they're planning to put its DNA inside African elephants, and they expect to bring them back in the next 5 years. Next, dodo birds were hunted to extinction 400 years ago, but a preserved head was recently discovered. By mixing that DNA with a maned pigeon, dodo birds should be coming back in 15 years. Finally, expect to see saber-toothed tigers outside soon, because scientists discovered DNA preserved in tar pits, and they plan to combine it with African lions. So this 10-inch tooth beast should be coming back in 10 years.
Morbid Facts, Part 477. In 2016, a man who'd been continuously stalking Miranda Cosgrove apparently plotted to murder her. For 3 days, the stalker had been burying various weapons in Cosgrove's backyard, including knives and a rope. One day, he spent hours pacing around the area and eventually shot at a woman who looked like the iCarly actress. The man then performed self-immolation before turning the gun on himself right in Cosgrove's yard. Miranda has stated that she still lives in the same house but refuses to stay there alone ever since that traumatic incident. Earlier this year, inmates at a Miami prison managed to birth a child without ever even meeting each other face to face. 23-year-old Joanne DePaz and 29-year-old Daisy Link, both imprisoned for separate murder charges, started talking to each other through the air vents before falling in love and eventually wanting kids. Using a makeshift line made out of bedding, they passed Joanne's erectoplasm through the vents, while Daisy used a yeast infection applicator to inseminate herself. Against all odds, the plan worked, and the baby was born healthy. The pair are now in different prisons, while Joanne's mother is raising their baby girl.
Things invented by different countries. US. Bulb. India. 0 digit. France. Bicycle. England. Computer. Malaysia. USB. Germany. Car. Japan. Laptop. Italy. Battery. Sweden. Dynamite.
Hybrid animals you won't believe exist. Dog plus cat. Cubby. Lion plus tiger. Liger. Goat plus sheep. Geep. Jaguar plus lion. Jaglion. plus grizzly bear, growler bear.
Animal facts we're leaving in 2024 because this app's going ghost and I am not doing this again. Black Panther's not an animal, it is not real. Panther means Panthera, so any cat in genus Panthera is a panther. So any of these cats being black is a Black Panther. This is a Black Panther. This is a Black Panther. This is AI. But it's hypothetically a Black Panther. Otters don't do this, and the fact that some of y'all think otherwise makes me angry. Male otters literally kidnap babies to hold as ransom for food. I promise you a pretty privileged hydro honey badger ain't operating off compassion. Elephants don't think you're cute, I don't know where that came from. Actually, I do, but that's for another video. But no, elephants don't think of us as cute, they think of us as pale predators. Probably why they life retire 500 people a year, allegedly. These aren't killer whales, they're whale killers. They're giant biracial assault dolphins. Well, actually, anything like a dolphin, whale, porpoise, whatever with teeth is a toothed whale. Dolphins are a type of toothed whale, and orcas are a type of dolphin. So every orca's a dolphin, every dolphin's a type of toothed whale, but not every toothed whale is a dolphin. Also, every tortoise is a turtle, but not every turtle is a tortoise. Pandas aren't bad at life, they're bad at adjustments. We've done way more to them than for them. I remember folks tried to get two pandas in Hong Kong to menage a deux for 10 years, but they thought the Oreo incels were too stupid to mate. A couple months of quarantine and isolation later, and the pandas were making a beast with two backs, and I think that pretty much sums up our relationship with them. Also, alpha wolves aren't real, it's literally just the parents. If you call your father alpha, that's your own omega business, not mine.
In 2005, a 37-year-old man from Houston, Texas decided to go to the beach to fish. The sand on this beach was super compact, meaning that it kind of felt like concrete. So it wasn't uncommon for people to take their cars on this beach. And on this specific day, John decided to drive his truck all the way up close to the shore where he unloaded and began to fish. He waded into the water so that he was about waist deep and began to fish. After a few hours of fishing, the weather started to get a little worse. And John, who had been out there for most of the day at this point, was beginning to feel a little bit tired. So he decided that he would take a nap. But instead of taking a nap inside of his truck, which was right next to him, he decided to crawl underneath it and sleep under the truck. And soon John drifted to sleep. Hours went by and soon it was dark outside. Unfortunately, while John was sleeping, the tide came up and his truck began to sink in the soft sand. And in doing this, it crushed him to death.
The craziest coincidences ever, part 3. Two men accidentally swam into each other at a pool party at the Flamingo Hotel in Las Vegas. But when they looked at each other, they were shocked when they realized they were identical. They even had the same hat and sunglasses, and their builds were exactly the same. In 1945, a man named Tsutomu Yamaguchi was on a business trip in Hiroshima when an atomic bomb hit the city. He was slightly injured in the blast, but he survived. After this, he returned to his home in Nagasaki, which took 3 days because of the chaos. He went to his office and tried to explain what happened in Hiroshima to his boss, but his boss didn't believe him. Then another atomic bomb dropped on Nagasaki right next to his office, but he survived again. When he managed to get home, he found his house had been significantly damaged. But miraculously, his wife and children also survived the blast. So the question is he the luckiest or unluckiest man alive?
This terrifying serial killer kidnapped a 17-year-old girl who was able to brainwash and outsmart the serial killer. This is a case that you guys have been begging me to cover ever since I started posting. Bobby Joe Long had a terrible childhood like most serial killers do. His mother gave birth to him when she was only 17 years old, and then his father abandoned him and his mom when he was only 2. And Bobby's mom was a pretty bad mom, and Bobby had some mommy issues because of it. His mother was really neglectful, always out partying, leaving Bobby home alone, and then his mom would bring home these random men for like a hookup, a one-night stand. But the thing is, Bobby and his mother could only afford a 1-bedroom apartment, and Bobby and his mom shared the same bed, meaning that his mother was bringing home these random men and sleeping with them on the same mattress that her son Bobby was sleeping in. And somehow that's not the worst of it, because Bobby and his mom shared the same bed up until Bobby was a teenager, meaning his mom was hooking up with random men in the same bed as her teenage son. And when Bobby was younger, when this was happening, he used to pretend to be asleep and just lay there as silently and still as possible. But when he got older, he started to watch his mom hook up with these men. And
I don't know if it's just me, but animal nerds piss me off, bro. Because for some reason, they always have to tell you the darkest fact about your favorite animal that you didn't even ask.
And I'm gonna do it again. Matter of fact, what's your favorite animal?
Favorite animals are otters and seals.
Say less. If you see a sea otter with its nose ripped off, it's almost definitely a female, because the otter mating process involves the male clamping his jaws around her face to hold her in place. Consent sold separately, in fact it might be discontinued. The males can get so aggressive that they completely destroy the female's nose, where it gets infected and swells to the point where the female can't eat and just starves to death. Or the male gets too excited and accidentally waterboards his partner in the process, which is only a tragedy to one of them, since males reportedly can't tell the difference between an active breathing participant and a soul evicted carcass, because they treat them exactly the same. Now you'd expect an animal that dates like this to have more males than females. Problem is that sometimes leaves an aggressive testosterone incel weasel without a mate, and in some of these lower female areas, these down bad water wolverines will settle for anything roughly the same size, which can lead the male sea otters breaking the seal with no approval, and sometimes even guarding the life retired body for up to a week. Now it doesn't happen that often, it's pretty rare, and only in those places with a severe gender imbalance. But what was your other favorite animal?
And seals.
Oh, well, some fur seals in Antarctica have the same problem, where a lack of female causes a hormonal hot dog without a bun to stick it in to resort to. Yep. There have been multiple recorded instances of fur seals forcing themselves on king penguins. In one case, a seal assault lasted 14 hours until it eventually gave up and just ate the bird. And now you know why penguins waddle. Say something else. I want you to.
This mom helped her son cover up his girlfriend's murder. Emily Peguero was born on July 12, 2001 in the Dominican Republic. She had 2 older siblings, a brother and a sister, so she was the baby of the family. Everyone describes her as being absolutely beautiful, very kind and loving, and just extremely bright. Her parents were very hardworking people. They didn't come from a lot of money, but they did their best to provide a good life for Emily and her siblings. When Emily was a little girl, she would often play with the neighbor that lived across the street, and his name is Marlon Martinez. So even though they were neighbors and lived right next to each other, they came from very different families. Marlon's mother, Marlene, was very well known around the community. She worked in politics, so she had a lot of connections. They lived in this very big house that was guarded by a large gate, while Emily lived in a more humble, tiny home. Emily and Marlon grew up very close to each other, and when Emily was 15 years old and Marlon was 18 years old, they began to date. So yes, she was a minor. They dated for a few months, and when Emily was 16 years old and Marlon was now 19 years old, they found out that Emily was pregnant. Of course, Emily's family was very scared and very nervous because the baby of the family was now going to have her own baby. It was definitely a scary situation, but they were supportive of Emily. As for Marlon's family, his mom was not happy about this. She was very upset about the fact that her son got a poor girl pregnant, and she was really worried about the family's reputation. She honestly didn't even care that Emily was 16 and was so young and going through this really big life-changing moment. She cared more about how this was going to affect her son's future and how this was going to affect him going to college. Despite his mom's opinion, Marlon told Emily and her dad that he was going to step up, take responsibility for this, and take care of Emily and the baby. Fast forward to August 23rd, 2017, Emily is now 5 months pregnant and she is expecting a baby boy. That day, Emily had plans to go to the clinic with Marlon to go pick up some lab results, and then she said that she would be back later that day. So Marlon picked her up at around 8:30 in the morning and the two of them headed off to the clinic. At around 11:25 in the morning, Emily texted her older sister saying that Marlon was actually going to drop her off at a gas station because she had plans to go meet up with their uncle. Now, as soon as Emily's sister and their mom saw this message, they were immediately concerned. First of all, Emily always sends voice messages, so the fact that she texted this time was extremely odd. Second of all, they were thinking, what uncle? Like, what uncle is Emily meeting with, and why don't we know about this meetup? Why would the uncle ask Emily to meet him at the gas station? Like, none of this made any sense. Now again, since the families are neighbors, they can literally see Marlon arriving home completely alone across the street. So Emily's sister decides to go across the street to ask Marlon, where is my sister? Where did you leave her? And that's when Marlon explains that as they were driving to the clinic, Emily realized that she got the dates confused and that her results weren't going to be ready that day, but instead be ready Friday. So she asked Marlon to take her home, and as they were driving, she said, actually, can you drop me off at the gas station? My uncle is going to pick me up there. So that's exactly what he did, and that was the last time that he saw or spoke to her. Again, Emily's family was extremely suspicious of this, so they decided to go to the gas station and ask the employees for the surveillance footage. And when they got to the gas station and looked at the footage, they were shocked by what they saw. Well, actually, they were shocked by what they didn't see. Okay, go to part 2.
She was paragliding when suddenly a storm comes out of nowhere, pulls her into the heart of it, and then propels her up 33,000 feet in the sky, which is higher than Mount Everest and the same cruising altitude as planes. At this height, temperatures plummet to negative 58 degrees and oxygen levels are dangerously low, creating a fatal environment. On the way up, she's hit with hail the size of golf balls before she ultimately loses consciousness. And then, despite being unconscious for over 40 minutes, She wakes up. Her paraglider remains stable due to the strong upward currents preventing a fatal spiral. Thankfully, the storm's downdrafts eventually brought her back to a lower and safer altitude. And then once she woke up, even though she was disoriented and barely able to move, she managed to regain control of her paraglider and land safely. In the end, she suffered frostbite bruises and shock, but she was still alive, and that's remarkable. Another professional who experienced the same thing wasn't so lucky. If you're a fan of my content, please do me a favor and subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is linked in my bio before this app gets banned.
You guys are awesome! Oh my goodness! So I just recently came out with a brand new
Less than 2 hours after that video was filmed, the girl on stage in that video would be dead. Her name was Christina Grimmie. She was a famous singer here in America, and she was murdered in 2016. So Christina had been making music and performing all of her life, but her real rise to fame started when she was on the show The Voice. After Christina was on The Voice, the world kind of opened up for her. She made her major label debut, she started going on tours all across the world, and she was a rising star. Sadly though, she attracted the attention of a very disturbed individual who can actually be seen here in footage from her final show, creepily watching Christina perform from the crowd, knowing what he was about to do. That man was 27-year-old Kevin James Loibl. So Christina's performance that evening ended at about 10 p.m. And afterwards, she moved over to a little booth to sign autographs for people who had come to the show. At around 10:24 p.m., Kevin approached Christina. Christina, thinking he was just like every other fan there, opened her arms up to give him a big hug. But that's when Kevin retrieved a Glock pistol from his person and shot her 3 times at point-blank range. After the shots rang out, Christina's brother tackled Kevin to the ground. Yes, sadly, Christina's brother was there working the booth with her that evening. But after a fight, Kevin managed to get himself free. He retrieved his Glock and he took his own life right next to Christina's body. Sadly, Christina had been shot twice in the chest and once in the head. And by 10:59 p.m., not even a full hour after she finished her performance, Christina Grimmie was pronounced dead. Afterwards, Kevin's family left this note for the media. This was all they had to say after the tragedy. But fans, even to this day, remember Christina as an amazing singer and talk about the potential that she had if she hadn't been taken from this world so quickly. If you want to listen to more true crime stories, check out the podcast Murder in America that I co-host with my wife, Courtney. You can listen to it on any streaming platform.
This is part 2 of what went on during the Habersham County press conference on Debbie Collier this morning. I highly suggest you go to the other video that I just made so that you can hear all the other details as well. So the most crazy information that they did give during this press conference was that Amanda did speak to Debbie on the phone that afternoon. Though he does not have the exact time on it. But whenever somebody asked if Amanda would give any indication on why she was going to the Family Dollar store, the police officer said that Amanda said that Debbie was going to the Family Dollar to buy supplies to clean Amanda's house. This raises so many questions for me because, I mean, first, why would you drive 90 minutes north to go to a Family Dollar to buy cleaning supplies when there's all these stops along the way and near her house to be able to get the same supplies? And the weirdest thing, none of that supplies is used to clean a house. I mean, paper towels, yeah, sure, but a torch, a poncho, a tarp, what would that be used for to clean a house? And coincidentally, all that supplies was found at the murder scene. They also confirmed that Amanda was living in Maryland with her brother, and she moved back down on the 8th of September. And remember, Steve lets Amanda live in the rental house off and on, basically whenever Amanda needs somewhere to stay. It was also confirmed that Steve was working from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. parking vehicles for the football game that was going on, and they have all of it on CCTV, so it's very unlikely that he's involved. So Amanda spoke to Debbie that afternoon. She got the Venmo transaction at 3:17, and then she waited a whole 3 hours to contact the police and file a missing persons report. And we don't know if Amanda tried to call her mom or anything between the Venmo transaction and when the police report was filed. That was pretty much the extent of the information that they gave. The detective did mention that this is not a sprint, and that they're going to take their time on this to be able to get all the information correct, which honestly I respect. Like, get all the information and then do what you need to do. Especially so whenever someone's found, court is smooth and there's no question or anything, to not be able to give this person the maximum punishment. One more thing is that they did mention that the autopsy is not completed yet. They have not received the report, and that the medical examiners gave them a 6-week time frame, likely because they're waiting on that toxicology report to come back. So let me know what you guys are thinking. They did say that they will do another press conference as soon as they get the autopsy report back, and hopefully by then they have more information. I think it's interesting that no one has been ruled out yet. And I will be super interested to see the timeline that they come up with whenever they get all the access to the phones. It's not really looking good though for Miss Bearden.
Bakit di ka natutulog sa tamang oras? Hindi ka kumakain ng maayos. Puro chichirya yung kinakain mo. Gusto mo bang ikaw na lang ang kainin ko? Kapag di ka pa natulog, bata, lalabas ako sa cellphone. Kukunin kita. Kaya matulog ka na, bata. Bago mahuli ang lahat. Tulog na. Bata. Nandyan ako. Sa likod mo. Ipikit mo na ang mga mata mo.